You know, Disney hid one of the darkest, most twisted stories ever told. What you're about to hear is the real, brutal, and just horrifying story behind the fairy tale we all think we know. So, I want you to forget everything you saw in the movie, because in the original story, Quasimodo slept with a decaying corpse. And believe it or not, that gruesome fact is actually where our story ends. So, to figure it all out, we have to treat this thing like a cold case. We've got to start right at the end, with the discovery of the bodies. So, about 2 years after the main events of the story, some workers entered this huge mass grave in Paris. And this is what they found: two skeletons locked together in an embrace. One was a woman, the other was a man with a crooked spine. And when they tried to pull them apart, the man's skeleton just disintegrated. It fell to dust. So you have to ask, who were they? And how in the world did they end up like this? Well, the answer doesn't lie with some kind of monster. It lies with a man. And he wasn't your typical fairy tale villain, with a funny hat and a twirly mustache. No, he was something we all recognize today, and honestly, something much, much scarier. He was a stalker. Yeah, the original story isn't a romance at all. It's this terrifying tale about a powerful man's obsession with a young woman, the beautiful dancer Esmeralda. And the man who was so obsessed with her, Archdeacon Claude Frollo. Frollo is like the textbook definition of a stalker. Seriously, think of Joe from the show You, but drop him into 15th century Paris. He's constantly watching Esmeralda from his tower in the cathedral. He truly believes that he owns her, that his twisted feelings for her are some kind of pure love, even as it gets more and more violent. And when she rejects him, he makes a decision. If he can't have her, nobody can. And his obsession just spirals out of control fast. At first, he just tries to ban her from dancing near his church. That doesn't work. So then he orders Quasimodo to straight up kidnap her. And when she falls for this handsome soldier, Captain Phoebus, Frollo literally stabs the guy in a fit of jealousy. And his final, most evil move? He frames Esmeralda for the whole thing and accuses her of being a witch. Now, you have to understand, in Frollo's world, when a powerful man points a finger, it's basically a death sentence. Esmeralda gets arrested, and she's thrown into this corrupt, brutal legal system that's really only designed to do one thing: force a confession. The process was horrifyingly simple. Frollo makes the false accusation, the court drags Esmeralda to a torture chamber, they take her small foot and they put it into this device called the boot. It's basically an iron vise designed to just crush bone into a bloody pulp. The pain is unbearable and she confesses to everything: witchcraft, murder, whatever they want her to say. The result? A death sentence. And can you guess who was watching all of this happen? Yep. Frollo. The man who set this whole thing in motion just stood there, in the shadows of the torture chamber, watching the woman he claimed to love get her body absolutely broken. And these words here, these are his own words describing what he saw. All right, let's get to the part everyone remembers from the movie, that big rescue scene. But in the book, it's not this moment of victory. It's really just delaying the inevitable. Just as Esmeralda is standing on the gallows, about to be hanged, Quasimodo swings down from the cathedral. He snatches her away from the executioner, carries her back inside the church, and screams that famous word, sanctuary. And by the law of the time, she was untouchable inside Notre Dame. She was safe. For a little while. But like I said, this isn't a fairy tale. In the grim, cold reality of Victor Hugo's Paris, stone walls are no match for a man's obsession, and Frollo, he was not about to give up. The story now just barrels toward its true, brutal ending. Frollo manages to trick Esmeralda out of the cathedral and drags her right back to the gallows for one last, final confrontation. He gives her one last choice. He tells her, "Look, I can save you. All you have to do is say you'll be mine." And Esmeralda, who was just so brave to the very end, looks at this man who has totally destroyed her life, and she chooses death. She rejects him one final time. And so, they hang her. There's no last-second rescue. No hero swoops in to save the day. The executioner just kicks the ladder out from under her, and Esmeralda dies. High above all this, on the towers of Notre Dame, two people are watching:
Quasimodo is watching in absolute horror, and so is Frollo. And as Frollo watches the girl he couldn't have die, he doesn't cry. He doesn't even look away. He laughs. A horrible demonic laugh.
Quasimodo sees this. He sees the man he thought of as a father laughing at the death of the only person he had ever loved. And in that one moment, he understands everything. He grabs Frollo and he pushes him right over the edge of the cathedral balcony, sending him plummeting to his death below. And just like that, everyone is gone. Frollo is dead. Esmeralda is dead. Quasimodo has lost absolutely everything. And this is what brings us back to those two skeletons we started with.
You see, after her execution, Esmeralda's body wasn't buried. It was taken to this horrifying place called Montfaucon. It was this giant open-air stone pit where the bodies of criminals were just thrown and left to rot, to be picked apart by crows. It was a true house of horrors.
And Quasimodo, with nothing left to live for, also disappears from Notre Dame that day. He finds his way to Montfaucon. He crawls down into that pit and he finds Esmeralda's body. And he just lies down next to her, wraps his arms around her, and stays there, starving himself to death.
He couldn't be with her in life, so he joins her in death. This wasn't a fairy tale wedding. This was a dark, tragic marriage in a mass grave.
And that brings us right back to the very end. 18 months later, when they found them, his skeleton had been holding hers for so long that they had almost become one. His love, in the end, was so all-consuming that even in bone, he refused to let her go. And when they finally tried to separate them, his devotion was so complete that he just turned to dust.